Hey everyone, how's it going? This is Watch, and in this video we'll be doing a direct hands-on comparison between the all-new 3DS XL, also known as the LL in Japan, versus the latest version of Sony's handheld gaming system, the PS Vita Slim. So therefore, if you're looking for a new handheld gaming system, let's go ahead and see which one is right for you. Now, both handheld consoles have been slightly redesigned from their predecessors. The PS Vita Slim, we have the 2001 North American version over here, which has been definitely improved in terms of overall weight and dimensions from the last generation PS Vita, and we'll talk about some of the specific changes you have on this new model. Now, the new 3DS XL has been pretty much revamped both in terms of design and the internal specifications. So, taking a look at the overall kind of physical footprints between these two consoles, and if you do close it in its clamshell position, the new 3DS definitely has a little bit less of a footprint than the PS Vita, measuring about 93.5 millimeters in terms of its depth and about 160 millimeters in terms of its width. The Vita Slim measures about 182 millimeters in terms of its width and about 83.5 millimeters in terms of its depth. Now, side by side, you can definitely see where the PS Vita's name comes from. It is certainly a lot slimmer than pretty much every other gaming console out there, measuring only about 15 millimeters versus 21.5 millimeters on the new 3DS XL. Now, in terms of weight, again, we have the PS Vita Slim being quite a bit lighter at only about 219 grams, and that's about 40 grams lighter than the previous generation PS Vita. And the new 3DS is certainly lighter than the last generation 3DS XL, but it is still heavier than the PS Vita Slim at 329 grams. Now, the design and form factor of both these consoles are pretty much worlds apart. In terms of controls, the new 3DS has a couple of things up its sleeves. It has the brand new ZR and ZL bumper buttons located at the back of the console. Some of the buttons have been also rearranged from the last generation XL to be a little bit more convenient and easy to use. And additionally, we have that new C-Stick, which is basically going to be another way for you to increase the functionality of what you can do on the 3DS in terms of controllability. It's basically like a miniaturized tactile joystick that you see in some older laptops and things like that. And it's very sensitive and very intuitive to use if you've never used one before. Plus, it's going to unlock some of the new functionalities of the new 3DS XL, both in terms of what you can do in your operating system and different apps, and developers are going to take advantage of this new control interface as they develop new games for the 3DS. Now, the PS Vita still has the dual analog thumbsticks that a lot of people love, especially if they're trying to replicate some of the console-like games that you have on the PS Vita, and the control interface itself is very well done. It definitely feels like the best miniaturized version of a PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 3 you can have on a mobile gaming platform. One thing is to be said is that I do like the D-pad better on the 3DS, and I also do like the overall kind of button configuration on the 3DS in terms of playing more kind of platform games and things like that. I think that's where the 3DS really excels at, and a lot of games are really optimized for that kind of more square rectangular form factor that the new 3DS XL has. Now, personally, I was never really a big fan of the analog thumbstick that's in the 3DS. Never really felt right to me. It never felt like a proper console-like experience, versus the PS Vita does a better job in replicating the analog tactile sensation that you get on a proper thumbstick. Additionally, at the back of the PS Vita Slim, we still have that large capacitive touchpad, which some people may or may not like, but in my opinion, I think if the game is designed for that touchpad in mind, games such as Tearaway really utilize that interface quite uniquely, and in some cases it adds another dimension to your gameplay experience. Now, the 3DS XL still has that resistive touchscreen at the bottom display, so you can use the standard DS stylus for interfacing with your games, and I think for certain strategy games and certain adventure-based games, that really does come in handy and adds another level of precision to your gameplay. Now, before you guys go insane in the comment section, make sure you're understanding that these are my personal opinions and my experiences on using these two gaming consoles for playing different games that are offered in each platform. You will definitely have your personal experiences in terms of which console console fits better for your personal needs and your physical attributes and things like that. But I think both of them offer a kind of unique perspective on how a gaming console should be on the mobile platform. And I think both of them present some advantages and weaknesses depending upon what kind of gaming style you prefer. Now, looking at the displays on both of these gaming consoles, you can see that we have dual configuration displays on the new 3DS XL, and we have one single 5-inch LCD capacitive touchscreen display on the PS Vita Slim, which has a maximum resolution of 950 by 540, which in terms of color reproduction and overall clarity is a better display than the top screen of the new 3DS XL, which measures about 4.88 inches and has a native resolution of 800 by 248. Now, the top screen on the new 3DS has been completely revamped from the last generation 3DS XL. Now you can pretty much view it at most angles up to 160 degrees, and it does a great job in terms of tracking your head movements to make sure that the 3D sensation is as consistent as possible, which in turn is probably one of the most advanced 3D viewing experiences you're going to come across in pretty much any other consumer electronic device that you have available right now. Now, the lower screen on the new 3DS XL measures about 4.18 inches, and it has a resolution of about 320 by 240, and this is a resistive touchscreen display, so you do definitely need that stylus. You can use your fingers occasionally to activate the different points on the touchscreen, and it has been slightly improved in terms of overall responsiveness from the last generation 3DS XL. Now, in terms of the internal specifications, the new 3DS XL does have a little bit of a slight improvement from the last generation 3DS in terms of overall internal performance. We have an ARM11 dual-core processor that's clocked about 532 megahertz with 256 megabytes of RAM, with 64 megabytes dedicated to the operating system itself, versus the Vita Slim has the quad-core Cortex A9 chip that we saw from the original PS Vita that has 512 megabytes of RAM. Now, we do have a faster GPU on the new 3DS XL compared to last generation 3DS. It basically has a higher overall clock speed of 266 megahertz, and it has 10 megabytes of video dedicated memory. However, even with those improvements, the PS Vita Slim still outperforms it in terms of GPU horsepower, of having a much more powerful GPU architecture, as well as having about 128 megabytes of discrete video memory. Now, just to see if there's any speed differences between these two consoles, we're just going to do a boot up test to see which one boots up the fastest. And as you just saw right there, the new 3DS XL is certainly faster in terms of boot up times than the PS Vita Slim. Now, we're just going to quickly do a Wi-Fi speed test. We're just going to load up the same website on both consoles to see which one loads up faster. And as you just saw, the PS Vita is certainly faster in terms of Wi-Fi browsing speeds because it does have 802.11n instead of the G capabilities on the new 3DS XL. Now, both consoles have accelerometers and gyroscopes in terms of sensors, and when we take a look at connectivity, they both obviously have Wi-Fi, but the PS Vita Slim has 802.11n and G, versus even the new 3DS still has a G Wi-Fi, which is certainly not as fast in terms of web browsing capacity. The PS Vita Slim also has Bluetooth 2.1, versus the new 3DS has the NFC capabilities, as well as an infrared port, which is used for wireless data transmissions. Now, both consoles have front and back cameras. They're pretty much all VGA resolution, so nothing extremely good in terms of quality. The new 3DS XL does have an improved camera from the last generation, and the Vita camera is wider in terms of its field of view, but quality-wise, they're pretty much identical in terms of front and back cameras. Now, both consoles are using 1 gigabyte of internal memory, so you do have a little bit of space for small game saves, as well as smaller applications and things like that, which is really excellent. And you can expand the memory. The new 3DS actually comes with a 4 gigabyte micro SD card, which is a lot smaller than the older form factor SD cards that you would have to use on the previous generation 3DS XL. And the PS Vita is using Sony's own proprietary M2 memory cards, which are certainly not as universal and as inexpensive as micro SD cards are. Now, the hardware aspect of these consoles are really the secondary library when it comes to the main aspect, which is games and content. And I think both of them offer a really great selection of different games. Basically, on the new 3DS XL, you can pretty much play all of the 3DS games that you came across throughout a number of years, as well as some DS games, so it has excellent compatibility. The PS Vita has excellent selection in terms of the online game library content that you have on the Sony PlayStation Store, and it's growing every day, and you have new games that are being ported all the time. You can also connect it to your PS3 and PS4 to do a remote connection, so you can actually play your PlayStation 4 games and your PlayStation 3 games remotely on your PS Vita, which is excellent for people who are in the PlayStation ecosystem. And in terms of the actual content itself, generally speaking, you do have the Nintendo exclusives mainly on the new 3DS versus a lot of the different Sony and independent titles are available on the PS Vita. So you definitely have to look at the game selection and library yourself to see which kind of is more towards your taste. I think both of them offer some really killer games and applications. Certainly in terms of multimedia and kind of graphical capabilities, the PS Vita definitely has the 3DS beat in terms of most of those categories. But the new 3DS is going to definitely take advantage of the new horsepower of the internal architecture, and games such as Monster Hunter 4G are going to really kind of push of what the 3DS XL can do in terms of gameplay and graphical capabilities. So definitely watch out for some of these new titles that are going to be coming out for the new 3DS that are going to take advantage of the new graphical capabilities. Now, the last thing that we're going to talk about is probably one of the second most important thing, and that definitely has to be battery life and performance. Now, thankfully, on the new 3DS XL, we do have a user replaceable battery. It is 1750 milliamp hours, and it has excellent battery performance. Basically, on a 3DS games, you're getting anywhere between 3.5 hours to 7 hours of gameplay guaranteed. If you actually are using DS games, which save a little bit on terms of battery performance, you get 7 to 12 hours, making the new 3DS XL the mobile gaming champion in terms of battery performance. Now, the new PS Vita Slim is definitely improved compared to the original PS Vita. You do have something like 6 hours of gameplay, which is certainly impressive for how small, lightweight, and compact the new PS Vita Slim is. But on that, guys, that's really it. If you have any specific questions about anything I talked about in this video, please make sure to leave that on a comment down below. Make sure to let me know which gaming console you would prefer. Right now, the new 3DS is available in Japan, and it soon will be in Canada and North America and all over the world in the coming months. So definitely excited about the launch of that. It's pretty much going to be the exact same console as we reviewed in this video, and the PS Vita is really going to have to kind of compete with that new Nintendo 3DS XL. And if you haven't checked out my other new 3DS comparisons, definitely do so on our channel, and at the end of this video where we find a whole bunch of new comparisons comparing the new 3DS to the previous generation 3DSs, as well as some other cool comparisons. So thanks so much for watching again, and we'll see you later. Take care.